pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first time on our agenda is public comment. The way we used to do this is anybody in the room. And then we call for people on Zoom. And so, is there anybody in the room that would like to make a public comment? If there is, I'll explain the rules. Is there anybody on Zoom? Please raise your hand that wants to make a public comment. See anybody now? No. Okay. Next up is the consideration and adoption of agenda. Do I hear a motion for that?
So any changes, Matt?
No changes.
Move for approval as presented.
I second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Okay, now we got our department reports. And our first one up is planning department monthly report. Yeah.
Morning.
Morning.
For the record, I'm Tamara Mabott, the planning director. So I sent you a big packet of materials for the August update. Some of those I think you've already seen, but it's nice to capture them all in one place. Let's see, we do have a new planning commission member. I have not met her in person yet, but we're hopefully we'll see her later this month. Norma Ayala from Boardman. As you know, we completed a large rezone for a data center with a large overlay zone. And as far as I know, that has not been appealed yet. I don't expect it to be because they'd have to at least raise an issue at the local level. We have a lot of business going on with energy, which it makes even more sense after our work session 2 weeks ago, why there's such a flurry of activity given changes in the federal funding with the big, beautiful bill. We continue to maintain the list and Stephen updates the online interactive map as we get new projects or amended projects that come in. I appreciate the good work session and the feedback for the solar rules we had 2 weeks ago. And I think I sent you this map. I've been doing some follow-up work with some information for you, and I just printed it, so I could hand it out to you, but this map came from one of the developers that shows the yellow area is the area in the AVA, which would put all of those soils into high value, which creates a higher bar for permitting solar facilities. So we're doing some other follow-up work, and I haven't checked in with Matt yet as to whether or not we should have another work session or just go to the table on some amendment.
On that map, do you know, so it's got I saw it, but so we've got what everything would be considered high value if the AVA was in place. And then is that second map to the right, is that solely removing the AVA and not taking into account topography and the other aspects
The
that are
soil
important?
aspect.
Yeah,
I need to study it a little more closely. Yeah.
because to me, it almost looks like, all right, we removed the AVA and then the second map is just irrigated ground, and there might, I suspect there is other ground outside in Morrow County that
Sure.
does not meet 15% slope.
Sure. Yeah. I need to study it, and Stephen and I need to spend a little time together to better understand that. So I don't know the answer.
It's fair.
Just sharing it as we're continuing to move and make progress. And I did also check in with Dan Kearns, our land use counsel. There was that unanswered legal question about if we choose to retain section 38 and also adopt section 44. And his advice was to do the formal plan amendment. So unless you want to have another work session, I can proceed with that. But I haven't checked in with Matt about that yet either. So we're making some nice progress on the Columbia River Heritage Trail Plan update. Shoemake's not in today, but I would like him to share it with you. And we've also set an internal meeting to talk about, okay, once we have this plan adopted, then where does it go? Does it become a piece of art on a shelf in the planning department, or what are their next steps? And so I think that now that we have a department head who oversees parks, which is Vince. He's been very helpful in those meetings, so we'll kind of figure out next steps on that. And that will eventually be adopted as a standalone document, not as amendment to our comprehensive plan. Although we will acknowledge it when we do our transportation system plan update, which there were some funding snafus with that at the state level for our TSP update, but we think we'll probably get started in the fall. Just some, Stephen's been spending some time with his new drone. You see on page 4, we have a fair amount of code compliance there. Did she include?
Is that code compliance, is there a shift in any direction, or is it sort of, this is about, what it stays at over time?
I think this is fairly consistent. I always like to see violations closed, and there's 9. That's a good number. That means the program's working the way it was intended to work, and we're not sending people to justice court. But Caitlin keeps a couple of items on that docket when she has to. Continuing to work on a lot of different water activities. Myself and Joe Fumara from Umatilla County, we presented at the Oregon Health Authority event that was held at the end of July in Boardman, and then there was also one in Hermiston. I attended the one in Hermiston, but presented the slideshow from GSI. We had a number of people who hadn't attended any water meeting previously, so we got their numbers, connected them with the GSI folks and also with public health. So that was a worthwhile time. I mean, if we only get a few folks who said, yeah, like I've got issues, nitrates in my well water, what can we do? And then, as you know, you adopted the 3rd phase of that roadmap research project. I'm kind of back up to Matt on the West Glen neighborhood and the public outreach, and we're mailing out postcards, for example, today for an upcoming event on August 27th. Then there will be another one in September, preparing some additional background information for them to share. I don't want to steal Matt's thunder if he's got to talk about that in the county administrator's report, but we're getting close to having some cost estimates to provide city water to that neighborhood if the residents are interested in it. And part of the PowerPoint presentation I presented at the OHA meeting was a survey that the roadmap project did. So people are very concerned about costs. They're concerned about what would happen to their remaining well. They're also, by and large, not interested in becoming a resident of the city. So that's just good information that we had moving forward. And then last night we had a Clean Water Consortium meeting, and I think it was probably one of the better, more substantive meetings we've had. We actually talked about projects. We had a really nice report from Nick Ducote, the grant writer of record, on funding opportunities for any of the systems. And we have between 300 and 500 in Morrow County. And I know that's a big gap. We have closer to 500 domestic wells, but of those, we don't know which for sure. We have some record of which of those wells have high nitrate that would need some attention. So as that trajectory for that project moves forward, a year from now, we'll have more or less the final report from GSI. Both counties will have that presentation, and it will include a number of options for different areas. We call them focus areas, and a menu, if you will, of solutions for what to do with different drinking water. We won't be everything to everybody, but at least that research will have some good data and also some at least preliminary engineering for what options are available to different areas. We are, in terms of transportation planning, I mentioned our transportation system plan, our TSP. We're slated to begin that project in the fall if ODOT and the state has the money lined up. We are also working on the interchange area management plan. Commissioner Winholtz is on the policy advisory committee. we added another meeting to that, which is today, this afternoon. Because ODOT had a whole variety of options and heard from the Technical Advisory Committee and the Policy Advisory Committee. And then in came a very clever ODOT intersection engineer who said, why don't we talk about phasing this project? So we're gonna hear more about that today. And I would plan to have a work session, if it works for Matt and the board schedule, to talk about what it would look like if the county were to adopt it, because many of those improvements at that intersection would fall into a county facility. So it would make sense to have Eric, who's been engaged in the process, and Kevin, and you all, before you go to formal adoption, so we can vet those issues before it becomes final. I just yesterday got the final summary of the legislative report, so I don't know how many of those new bills related to land use or water would apply for us. And I just included the flyer. I think staff did a really nice job putting together that flyer for the open house on the Heritage Trail. And I included the PowerPoint that you all saw 2 weeks ago, because not everybody has seen that, on the new solar rules. And this is the flyer from the Oregon Health Authority event. Yeah, I think that's all. Any questions or?
I have a comment. I want to thank you for putting together that work session on the solar. I had, when you got it together, I invited a couple of citizens, and then I saw two of them at the fair, and they said that was really a good session.
Oh, good.
And
Good.
you don't always get that.
That's for sure. I appreciate that feedback.
So, yeah, I appreciate your efforts on that. It was informative, and I think we were kind of the center of information. Good,
Yeah, well, I had
it
some,
worked out good.
yeah, thank you. I had some really good help. So to
Yeah.
get the heavy hitters to come out and address just Morrow County, but our region is ground central for solar. So if John Jennings and Elaine Albridge are still confused about how a few of those rules might get implemented, I'm still confused. So I'll come back with what I think is a recommended package for an informal discussion, and then we can go through formally. But I don't know if it's out of line, but if you recall 2 weeks ago, there was the section 38 and the section 44, and then the goal 5 piece. Would you be comfortable if we just started that formal legislative process to include the new 44 rules? Or do you feel like we still need another work session?
No, I'm comfortable.
I think we should start moving forward, and if we get to a point where we have to have another work session, yeah, but I think.
Okay, perfect. That way, we want that in place before the end of the year, and it takes some advance time. The goal 5 piece is, Commissioner Peterson and I meet every other week, and that's a really heavy lift for a county, but we think maybe some industry folks would be interested in helping with that. And of course, it's a tool available on a case-by-case basis, for sure.
So maybe you just answered what I was going to ask. So were you thinking goal 5, the county does the whole county, or it's project by project? The developer comes in, they want to do a goal 5 for their footprint, or what were you thinking?
I think this could be a scenario where we may have developers say, you know, how far do you want this to go? And the more you help us do that, then the farther this might go. And if you want to have a countywide thing, then awesome, help us do that. I think that they're under a lot of pressure, so let's use that.
So I guess a follow-up, what I took out of the meeting 2 weeks ago was that the goal 5 process wouldn't meet the timeline for the developer.
I think that's right. Yeah,
So
for the
maybe-
permitting they're trying to do right now. Yeah, they'd be waiting for us for at least a year. And that doesn't mean we're slow. It's just that sort of analysis that you have to do.
That's what I thought.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm also following up to say thank you to all those folks who helped us with that process, because like Larry Luger took time away and was really helpful too. Okay, excellent. Thanks.
Yeah.
Clear direction.
Okay, next up would be our weed department, whether Corey.
All the weeds are dead, right?
What's that?
All the weeds are dead now, right?
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course, we need a weed program manager. And My report is starting off in June. I'll touch on a few things here that are important that you guys should be aware of and not go through every item. But I'll talk to you a little bit about I also work with the developers for solar developers for pre-construction, and mostly with seed mixes and timing to choke out the noxious weeds. They're very proactive on this, and there's actually two developers working on the same contract, and both of them informed me that they hope to break ground in last part of January, first part of February. And I'll be continuing to work with them in October on those seed mix they're doing. One of them is trying to pre-seed, anyway, to be proactive and get ahead of the noxious weed program or problem before, before disturbance instead of after disturbance. So that, which is great. And they've been really good to work with, both of them have. So I did had a meeting with the Umatilla County Weed Master. We were trying to put our heads together and work with the state a little bit, our Oregon Department of Ag. The problem with kochia and weed resistance is becoming very problematic. In Morrow County, we have like 3 sites that are pretty prevalent that can't really be controlled with chemical very well anymore because of the resistance that's built up. Umatilla County has one area. They've been hitting the same area about every 3 weeks to try to control that kochia with the resistance. They have 4 people, so they can do that a little bit easier than we can here in Morrow County, but we're trying to combat that with the kochia, and you probably noticed kochia around. It's becoming pretty prevalent and weed resistant here in Morrow County. We're continuing to work on that with the Oregon Department of Ag. So I'm continuing my meetings with Haley and Aldrich, the consulting company for Odo. We're having our regular meetings, and they are transitioning from host developers and development to B2H. They're allocating a lot of their resources to B2H coming in from Morrow County. They have decided to subcontract to Anderson and Perry for some of the compliance and reporting issues, and the Anderson and Perry will be more on the post development that's been out there a few years, so they can concentrate on B2H. And so I'll be working with 2 of them now, not just Haley and Aldrich. Haley and Aldrich on B2H, and then a little bit more with Anderson and Perry for the rest of the wind and solar projects that have been developed in the county. They being Odo realized that it's a heavier workload, so they got with Haley and Aldrich to consult Anderson and Perry, and Anderson and Perry thought they were a little closer. They're 3 hours away. Anderson and Perry is 2 hours away. Haley and Aldrich can get out like every 2 months. They'll be here. Anderson and Perry will be able to come, looks like once a month, hopefully more often than that, but that's kind of the plan they've come up with, and that'll be sounds like onboarding in, I think, October with those visitations. So that's the update I have for that. I worked with compliance planner Caitlin Kennedy on 3 code enforcements, and 2 were closed out in 20 days. It was very productive. The one took 60 days, but it got taken care of, at least killing the seed for next year. And that was great, and that was huge, working with her, and took a lot of time and effort on her part to help me, and I appreciate that. She did great. So hired a new applicator, Justin Reed, which has been working out fantastic. I've been able to accomplish a lot of tasks that I haven't been able to accomplish in 3 years because of him and time in Florida. And yeah, it's been a huge benefit having him around. He's been spraying every day. Early in the mornings, I've been spraying maybe once a week to help get caught up and where we need to, but it's a good program. It's working out really well. Did purchase a new Ranger, which in and of itself is good. But having the procurement manager, Sandy Pointer, do all the heavy lifting, and most of it was the biggest benefit. That was really nice. Made it really smooth, really easy, and got a lot of hours off my plate, and he was very much appreciative, and that was a huge benefit. It's been, I know Director Imes has his own report, but him and I have been a hard time connecting because we've both been accomplishing what we need to accomplish. And with the procurement person in place, it's freed both of us up to get connected and to start knocking out some of these bigger things. So it's been a big positive in public works. And then I'll just touch on the Plymouth Thistle site. We got the grant last year. We only observed 2 plants this year, which is great. 16 in 2023, 20 in 2024. So hopefully next year we'll have 0 plants at that site and be back down to only 3 areas in Oregon where this noxious weed is found. And then I worked on a couple contracts, or one with the CDA for spraying 6 miles of roadway, and another one with Boardman Park and Recreation District for vegetation control. Contract with the county or vegetation control with the Boardman Park Marina would be exclusively with those. I have not looked for any contracts, just whatever comes onto my plate. My director still wants me to hold back on going into the other contracts till we get everything in place. Yeah, and then this other issue that we've been dealing with, the Oregon Department of Ag reached out to me with want some more information about the milk vetch, and the milk vetch kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but issue, I guess. State of California has milk vetch as a protective native plant, and the Secretary of Interior is putting that on Oregon to also protect it. So the problem is it's around these energy development, and myself and Haley and Aldrich are looking at this like the milk vetch is great, but we still need to control weeds in that area. And ODO, Oregon Department of Energy, and some of the botanists for the developers are thinking that maybe that should be protected more and hold back on the spraying and herbicide application. And but that hurts some of those areas where we probably see an influx of yellow star thistle and spread, and areas that we haven't had it. So we're trying to work together to find a balancing act protect the vetch and spray herbicide and not not let that go. So that's, I'll continue to keep you posted on that, but.
So they're talking about protecting a weed.
In many ranchers' view, it is a weed. It's invasive when it comes on. It only comes on every, like, whenever we have a heavy snow year in spring down low, yeah, we'll see it come on, a flush of it, but it's, that's it. When it does come on, it's, the cows won't eat it. It does encroach on everything else. It's a less desirable native than what we'd like to see.
He didn't say it, but I think he said yes.
Yeah. But it is becoming a bit kind of a big issue because there's areas that they're thinking about, well, we just won't spray here, not, and we would like to see that area be sprayed and controlled for the noxious weeds. We think that's a bigger issue, controlling the noxious weeds, than a native plant that'll always be here and come on certain years, and not. So we'll continue on working on that. We have some more meetings ahead. We'll see where that goes. So I've still met with several developers, continuing to work on some compliance issues, come a long ways, and has done good and seen a lot of progress. One thing that's been helping out a lot, because Odo, our haliologist, can't be out here all the time, they're sending memos almost every 6 weeks with pictures and updates on what they're seeing out there and bringing it to us. And yeah, good, bad, or indifferent, you know, we know what's going on and we talk about it and try to improve. So that's been a positive, because there hasn't been a lot of boots on the ground out there checking on these things. So that's been working. So that is kind of my report. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you very much.
Morning, Commissioners, Kevin Ince, Finance Director. So I gave you guys a written report, touched on significant projects that we have going on and status of those. One of the themes that you probably noticed is we're having ongoing staffing issue. It's kind of reaching a point of criticality and with regards to day-to-day stuff, let alone additional projects. So we're doing what we can to try to fill that vacancy. It is likely that on the horizon there may be some more staffing challenges within the next 6 to 12 months. So that's the biggest obstacle. We're on the ERP system project. We've had some updates since I put this report together. We're looking at end of October to start full swing into implementation activities, which will give us just enough time to hopefully get the budget system finished and up and going, which is also scheduled to end right around the end of October. So audit activities were unfortunately kind of, some of the deadlines are jeopardized with our financial audit. If we are not able to stay on track for our September deliverables for that project, then we'll get pushed back to probably at this point into December for final field work. So that would end up being another extension, which the Secretary of State Audits Division expressed their concern last year because we had 2 extensions prior to that. So any questions?
Yeah, so on that, you alluded to potential more staffing issues. If there is a possibility that we know this is coming, is this something that we could start? I mean, we hired on people for a couple of other positions to try to, when we knew that somebody was going to be retiring. Is there something that we could do to try to fill that gap before it becomes open?
I mean, the answer is yes, but due to the level of uncertainty, I'm not comfortable with that because it's expensive, obviously, to do that. So
No.
Matt and I have been talking about that this regularly. So if we reach a point where I have some enough certainty where I'd be comfortable with it, then yeah, we'll probably come back and talk to the board about that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, any other questions of Kevin? Let's see, your accounts payable pretty much self-explanatory usually, so,
Unless the board has questions, yeah.
yeah, okay. Anybody for F? If not, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be our treasurer quarterly investment report. That's JB.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
For the record, Jaylene Papanoff, Treasurer.
And I'm Deanne Woodring with Government Portfolio Advisors, your investment advisor.
So I try to give you guys a quarterly investment update on, where we're sitting. I asked Deanne if she'd please be here to answer any questions you might have that I cannot answer. So hopefully we can have that open communication on that.
I guess anything you want to point out to us or?
I can kind of share. So we started working with the county in early 2024. And you guys actually hit about the peak in interest rates for investing in fixed income securities. But let me back up. So I have my own firm, Government Portfolio Advisors out of Portland, Oregon. We currently manage over 26 billion in assets under management. 9 billion of those are here in Oregon. We work with 32 clients, 9 counties. So we're very versed in helping counties with their cash flow needs, looking at optimizing the investment portfolio and making sure you're looking forward and long-term within the investment structure. So in working with both Kevin and Jaylene, we put together a pretty comprehensive investment program for you, where you have a portion that's invested between 1 day and 5 years, and a portion that stays in the LGIP for liquidity. So we're in the background back here supporting the team, providing everything's done on a non-discretionary basis. So Jaylene approves everything that we do on your behalf. But it's really exactly this staffing issue. We're in here to add a piece of expertise to support the county to achieve your financial goals. And you guys are sitting very well. You're earning 4.25% on your overall investment program. Everybody's hearing about the Federal Reserve expected to bring interest rates down. Your portfolio is positioned very well to move into that stage.
I got a question, and it might be, I might have read in before we've had information from you. And you say you deal with a lot of counties and when you're looking at, an investment mix, or however you think, do we have like a risk score that is set for the county?
I'm glad you asked that because that's something I used to do, is actually score risk by taking an assessment of the commissioners in the organization. You don't have a quote risk score. You are very constrained at this time, but it's something that we can look at. And the main risks that we are exposed to in fixed income portfolios is price change when interest rates change. And that's all a measure of maturity. So for your portfolio, we're maintaining about a 1.25 year overall maturity, which is very, very low risk profile. We're in treasuries and agencies. You're allowed to do corporates, but we haven't been adding to those. So your portfolio is being managed on a lower risk profile, but still in a dynamic manner.
And that risk factor is set by whom?
There isn't a measure for local governments on risk. When I said I tried to build that, because everybody just has a slight variance, but there's not a quote risk measure out there that measures risk for local governments.
Any other questions on investments or?
And you guys keep growing, and that's what we're planning for, and having us in place on the team, I think should be really helpful for that growth.
We appreciate your work with us. So, thank you for coming. We
Yes.
appreciate that. And then, Jaylene, did you have anything to report on your monthly report?
My monthly report itself is pretty standard. I did want to ask, as I am, the previous board made me a part of the Morrow County Cultural Coalition. I would like to have our state representative give a 5 to 10 minute presentation next month, if that's okay, to try to help get the word out and about these grant opportunities for our local cultural history, art community.
Are you asking to have somebody present at our next BOC meeting?
Yes.
I think that'd be great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that. What do you
I
think?
think I remember them doing it like 18 months ago or so. It was a good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we always want to hear what's going on. Good time, you know, you're welcome. Come and what's up.
You know, nice to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. What do we got next? Our county administrator report, Matt.
Yes, written report was submitted. I'd like to just highlight a few items. Capital improvement process, we had a work session on that 2 weeks ago. Chair Sykes and I have been able to meet. We had a few questions that we wanted to finalize and kind of get through, but I think we have a direction that we're working towards. And so we look forward to bringing that before the BOC, hopefully at the first meeting in September. So looking forward to that, and as we continue to work together to finalize that. Just to let you know, HR director interviews, we have submitted we've offered and received a employment agreement with Chelsea Gover Price as the HR director. She'll be starting on September 9th, or September 8th, sorry. And we will be preparing a little press release that will shoot out information. We were just finalizing background check and reference checks before we finalize that, but just wrapped up the last one this morning, so we should be good to go with that. So excited. She has over a decade of HR experience in different levels, and met with several of the elected officials, department heads. Overwhelmingly had a good vibe on her, and we're excited about that. One big thing is she's familiar with Eastern Oregon. She grew up in the Dalles, had family, a bunch of her family lived down in La Grande, and so she's excited about getting over to the east side. I don't know if she's tired of the rain, but she's excited to be back over here on the dry side. We've also had our HR assistant just started this Monday, and so we are staffing up there and looking good. We also, one thing just to let you know, myself, Kevin and Mindy met to review the ethics committee opinion letter on the taxability of employer provided foods and gifts. This is something that they submitted out earlier this year that has some impacts about, I can't remember which mayor of a certain city submitted to the ethics committee a question on what if cities providing meals, if it's taxable. What's that?
It was Beaverton.
Beaverton. So we won't speak too harshly about them, but it does require that we adopt a new policy, and we're reviewing that. We'll likely be bringing it to the commission, just acknowledging that the county may do that, and it's part of the total compensation. But we just want to make sure we don't trip any items. We're working with Justin to review that as well, and so we'll be bringing that to you.
So pizza could be an ethics violation, is that?
Well, if it's not, well, we have to say it's part of their total compensation. Otherwise, it could be a taxable item. And if it's incidental and not frequent, it's not a big issue. More or less, they're worried about if you're getting regular meals provided, then that definitely is a IRS taxable item. If it's a one-off kind of thing, yeah, it's a little bit of an overreach, I think, on the Ethics Commission, but we don't want to run afoul of it, so we will go in and put the necessary policies to make statements. Kevin, you want to add in on anything to that?
Yeah, so the Ethics Commission was originally looking at the acceptability under Oregon statute for employees and other public officials. You know, the statutory definition of a public official that would include any of the employees receiving that and being in violation of the ORSs that prohibit public officials from receiving gifts. And that's kind of where it started from at the Ethics Commission. And then League of Oregon Cities reached out to CIS engaged an attorney, and then the attorney started writing about all the taxability of this stuff. So, and what Matt's talked about, the policy, we just need to update one of our existing policies that just states that those may be provided on occasion and as part of the total compensation package. So we don't go afoul of any of the statutes that govern the acceptance of meals and gifts and that type of thing by employees or other public officials.
So would this have affected like the planning commission and different things?
If it's provided on a regular basis, yes.
So, I mean, speaking from experience, and Justin was there, I mean, it wasn't a regular basis, but you know, a couple times a year, but I think that was one of the things that the planning commission really appreciated is that, you know, lots of times you're meeting at dinner time and, you know, you're volunteering your time. It's
Like a work session ahead of time. I thought the meeting might start at 7.
Yes.
They might say, hey, let's start at 6. We'll bring pizza and stuff like that and work through it.
So the attorney opined on a bunch of different items, including potlucks provided by employees. So it is, so we are looking to do that. Just let you know, we're meeting on these things. We're pulling Justin in. Our first meeting was when he was in out of country, but we will be meeting and bringing that to the BOC. We just wanted to give you a heads up so you aren't scratching your head when we bring the policy wondering why. So this is, we've started those meetings and just wanted to let you know, other municipalities have already adopted those policies. The League of Oregon Cities has been huge on this. For some reason, the AOC has been relatively quiet on it. But it does impact both cities and counties. And so as we become aware of it, you know, I had become aware of it when Kevin became aware of it. He's like, we need to chat. So we're just going to cover our bases to make sure the county's protected. And if there's any change in process that we need to do, we want to get that out so we don't run afoul of any possible ethics commission complaints. So.
well, thanks for doing it, but you know, I can see where the cities are really doing it. I would imagine that there are cities that, you know, they provide the city councilors, because again, you know, they're meeting at dinner time and here's one very small little thing to maybe keep people to stay on city council. I mean, because they're volunteer, they're non-paid position. So you provide them pizza for dinner once a month, so they, yeah.
And just to let you know, one of the things they said, like 2 weeks ago, when we had a long marathon meeting and
Yeah.
we might have broke for lunch and had the county provide it. Those things they say, if it just happens incidentally, you know, that's okay, as long as it's taken care of and it's business related. But they get a little dicey when it's regular. I mean, just let you know, one of the things that we have is already built into our policy is if Public Works goes long, we provide them a mill, but we've set it up so we just give them a stipend to take care of that mill, and it is taxable, so that'll be covered in that. But it is rather far-reaching opinion that the Ethics Commission provided, and so we're covering it. And AOC and LOC are looking about what they can do to help soften that on the OGEC side. But right now, we're dealing with the advisory letter that's coming out. So
Understood.
just to let you know where we're at with that. Just want to let you know, we had a good fair. And this was submitted kind of right before that, but a lot of good things, a few things we need to tweak, traffic control and such. But overall, it was very well attended. Appreciate those who were able to attend for the Queen's dinner. and that, but it was very good. We've got some takeaways. There is still some discussion, and we will be meeting with the rodeo group and the fair group as far as for next year's with the impacts of the construction for the circuit courthouse. During the fair and the rodeo, they received some feedback, and so we're going to be meeting with them in the next week just to see plans on that. So we are keeping them aware of that, which includes possibly meeting with some of the neighbors and arranging for remote parking and everything. One of the concerns that we have, even with regular operations along that state road right outside the fair, when you've got cars parked double-sided, don't point out them, but a certain employee of ours drives a big dually, and he was happy when he drove that road that no one else was coming the other way, or they would not have been able to get past it. So that's a safety concern, whether you have the courthouse construction or not. And so we'll be looking into that and engaging with some people. Vincent's already talking about some ideas, and they have a debrief scheduled for next week, which I hope to be able to attend to kind of hear some things out and emphasize some things. The county booth, which was set up and initiated, was manned a good portion of the time. They did receive some good feedback, and we've actually received some internal feedback on what we can do if we're looking to do that for the county, about what we can emphasize if we look to do that again. So some good things there.
Can I add something?
Please.
I do want to say that Gus and I were at the Queen's dinner, and they presented us with a signed copy of the poster, which was very nice. They got our picture, and I'm trying to track down Sue so we can post it on the website, because it's nice. You know, I mean, they showed appreciation for our support for the fair.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
So they give you one each or just
Yeah.
one? Oh, excellent. That's awesome. Yeah.
I got mine hanging in my office in there.
Might have to look at it and see if we can get it framed for you. If it's not framed. Oh, already is. That's awesome. So we do have Tai Lin, who is our new fair manager. She was able to attend most of the time there. She was double dutying as the new fair manager upcoming, as well as a superintendent of some events. So she was able to get some filling of it. I also do want to, nod of the head to Vincent and Ramey as support for the fair group. They were down there quite a bit, helping facilitate things, and it really helped with some of the processes and provide some input and feedback on what they can do as we work through this transition for next year. So a good event. We'll talk a little bit more about foreclosure process a little bit later. One thing as we look item wise, there's a couple items that just came up this week. Two events scheduled for September that I'd like to just bring to your attention. And we've got an EOWC, the annual Roundup Governor's Luncheon on Friday, September 12th, with the featured speaker there in Pendleton. I can show that to you or give that to you if you might be interested in that. We'll see what we can do. Also, there is a rural track for Oregon Infrastructure Summit in Seaside on September 9th. That if either of you are interested in that, I can get you that information. That one's in Seaside. They do have a workshop on the 8th and then a summit on the 9th. And so if you have any interest, just let me know and I can send that to you.
The first one, what was it? EOCA?
It's Eastern Oregon Women's Coalition.
Okay.
Is the group, the same one that did the economic summit.
Okay.
They're holding their annual Roundup Governor's Luncheon. They have limited opportunity for questions in that and a discussion there. So, but if you're interested, that's available on September 12th.
I would be interested.
So I make it after the parade of the BMTC is where they traditionally had it.
Yes, so that is where it'll be down. So, the last thing I want, and I didn't have this in the report, but it's come up since we submitted it. I would like to consider possibly relocating a couple departments, which could be a swap from from Hepner and Irrigon on a very limited basis. Typically, this is an operational issue. We will proceed with the loop and just giving you notice. But I wanted to see if, we're gonna look and explore this, how the BOC would like to review that, or if you'd like to review that before we pull any triggers on this. Part of it is, quite frankly, we're having a hard time recruiting for the for our finance department. And we might be able to get better recruits if we're up on the north side with that group. And so I'd just like to see if the BOC would be interested in reviewing that before we pull any triggers. Finance department's pretty central to our area. That might trigger some other relocations down on Hepner as it frees up space. And so I'd like to get that information and just seeing if the BOC would like to review that before we pull trigger.
I would.
Okay, yeah, we'll work in that direction. So with that, that's the report that I have for the county administrators. Any questions? Be happy to respond.
Questions on that?
No. Okay,
No, thank you, Matt.
thank you.
Thank you. Next up is our consent agenda. Either of you guys want to pull any of those items out, talk about?
So I'll just make a comment. I had a couple minor corrections I handed to Valerie this morning on minutes, but others than that.
Okay, I hear a motion to approve with the corrections to the minutes.
I move to approve the consent agenda with some corrections.
I second.
Then move to second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Okay, then we'll move on to our business items. Next up would be, first up is Century West Engineering, the API design contract. That's Eric.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning, Eric.
Eric Craig Rentz is online.
Oh, great. Great with Century West. If there's, after my report on this, if you have any questions for him, he is available. Thanks, Greg. Get my computer open, sorry. Over the past few months, during my Public Works report, talked about the Pappy reconstruction project that we'd like to get done. Pappy's the Precision Approach Path Indicator. This system helps the pilots land more safely, give them visual cues about their angle of approach. And it's especially helpful for weather or unfamiliar airports. To get this done, we're asking to partner with Century West Engineering for this design phase. They've worked with us on past projects for quite some time. This project, their responsibilities would be to manage the project itself, create the design and bid documents, coordinate with the FAA and the state, and they'd also help us select a contractor when we're ready to build. You see in the details from the time that we budgeted for this design phase to today has changed a bit. Kevin helped me with this portion. It's very helpful. We're gonna need an additional 59,650. Thanks, Kevin.
Nothing, just.
Yep.
So, when we were looking at this contract, reviewed the budget, contracts for more than what, the project was included in the budget, but there's a roughly $60,000 budgetary impact. That increase in cost is primarily gonna be covered with the increase in the grant from the FAA, but there's a little bit, about $3,000 more required to be contributed from county and local funds. I did not have an opportunity to prepare a resolution to do a budget adjustment. And so we put the details in here. This is an adjustment that can be done via resolution. There doesn't have to be a full supplemental budget and budget hearing and whatnot. There's adequate contingency in the fund to cover it. I just didn't have time to put the resolution together, so apologize for that. But financially, I don't have a concern. Like I said, there's adequate contingency to cover the county's portion and the FAA grant being increased to offset the rest. So,
Okay. So do we need to wait for a resolution or make one right now?
I think you can approve it pending the budget resolution, because right now we're not allocated to do it until we can actually do that. So I guess signing it can be concerned until we have the budget resolution. Once that's done, I think it could accept it, but that's the issue. We can go forward. We don't have the funding approved for it at this time. So probably I would say, unless there's an issue, I don't know about, if we bring it back to hold off when we do the budget resolution too, unless there's, I don't know the process or the timing that takes.
So the constraint is only for the grant that we're gonna talk about next. I think that we have time, the grant approval is due next week. We have some more time, I think.
So just more of a, I guess, an administrative question. So we routinely will sign and enter into contracts or agreements that are subject to funding, have subject to clauses in there. I believe this
This one does
contract
too, then?
also has that. So
Okay, then
I
we're
guess I don't know if I would share the same concern, because if there's a subject to funding clause,
I get there's more of a process aspect of, I know a lot of times we might come back with the correction. And then it's like we get the money and then it's like, oh, well, you didn't have the money approved, so now we're trying to come back to clean it up. And that's where like made the process. But you're right, if we have language in there, or most of the contracts will say, as long as there's adequate funding. And the issue right now is, well, there's not funding yet, but we plan on it coming back. So we could approve it today. My thought was the process is, a lot of times we're coming back cleaning stuff up. Where if we actually did the budget and then at the same time, we're not coming back saying, oh, we did sign this agreement. You know, we're more informed now than we normally in the other times we come back after we start working on it and it goes above budget or something else happens. So it's whatever which way it's fine either way. If the board wants to approve it today, it should be okay. It's more of a cleanup process. We have to come back here anyways. There's not a time constraint on the contract. Do we do this at the same time? It sounds like the main timing is the grant, approving that aspect, which is not us expending funds, that just signing up for the grant application.
yeah, and I just didn't want this hanging out there. It's on me. Like I said, I didn't have time to draft a resolution.
Based on your earlier report, I think we can understand why, so.
That is all I have.
Okay.
Unless there's further questions.
No further questions? Okay, ready for a motion?
I'll go ahead and move to approve the Pappy Reconstruction Design Contract with Century West Engineering and authorize the county administrator to sign. I'll second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
You got another one there, Gus? I could make another one, and then I move to direct staff to prepare the necessary budget adjustment for Board of Commissioners approval. Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You want to talk about the grant?
Yep.
Hey.
Do you want to talk about the grant?
Yes. So as part of this project, the FAA has officially awarded Morrow County the grant for this project. The total cost of the project. I don't know if I should go back to that last page. The total cost of the project is $178,598. The FAA grant 95% of that at $169,668. And then Morrow County's portion would be $3,578. Yeah, so that's what I have as far as the grant.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for the designate Eric as the authorized representative to sign necessary grant documents?
Yes, I make that motion. I second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the Fort County Strategic Investment Program intergovernmental grant agreement. That's me and Mike. I don't think Mike Gorman's on, is he? He's off, but he said he might zoom into the meeting.
I'm here if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay.
do you want to lead it off, Mike, or you want me to?
Go ahead, David. I think, Commissioner Sykes, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, and everybody has any questions, I'm happy to chime in.
Okay, I'll give you a little history how this got here. Of course, we all know, I think we all know, that the legislature passed a law to make the port and counties partners in SIP from now on. Before it used to be just a county thing. We did some work trying to get that passed in the last legislature. That didn't come about. So about 3 or 4 months ago, the Port of Morrow passed a resolution or a motion to develop an IGA with the county, how the process would be handled. You know, because there is a process going through when you have a new business or entity that wants to do a SIP agreement, which SIP agreement, of course, is the tax reduction program. So they made that motion. So then Mike and I didn't hear anything from him. So Mike and I went out and met with Lisa, talked about it. And she said, yeah, you guys go ahead and develop it. So we developed up this IGA. And I think the goal of the IGA mainly, and I think Mike and I agreed on this, was we want to have our ducks in a row, okay? Amazon has done one SIP with us. Traditionally, they've been in CREZ. They have a new area they want to talk about. They want to talk about SIP. Well, what's the process they go through? Who do they talk to? And what we didn't want to do is we don't want to get a client or a client or what, a business that's interested embroiled in an argument or discussions about between us and the port about the money or anything like that. We want to have a set process where we can say, okay, and we have a wind farm coming now, Hepner Wind is, and they're probably going to be coming to us too. So that's what this IGA is, to try to lay out some ground rules and move forward to develop. Of course, this isn't the agreement between the business entity and the county and the port. This is just between us, the structure we would use to come to that IGA agreement or that agreement with that business entity. We think it makes it Morrow County more business friendly and doesn't, and then we're not reinventing the wheel every time we have a new business or talk to the port. So that was our thinking on doing this. So anything to add on that, Mike?
No, Commissioner Sykes, I think that sums it up. We just want to be able to have good negotiations with whatever company wants to locate here in Morrow County. And I think this IGA, makes a good platform to have those discussions. And yeah, so sounds good.
Okay, so a couple things here. Of course, the IGA has to be approved by both the port and the county. And my thinking was, somebody's got to get something on the table. So this is, we put this out, and of course it'll go to the port and they'll look at it and they would have to approve it too. There is one email I had Valerie print out for you that Kevin sent me that addresses, he reviews everything in Civic Plus, which is great. And so he has some thoughts here on what he would like to see included in the IGA, in any IGA. So what do you guys think? What's your thoughts on this?
So my first thought is that when Matt and I were testifying in front of the Senate committee when this was on the final push through, we had assurances from Senator Meek that he would work on the short session to address this issue. The group as a whole seemed very open to the idea that this seemed like it was an oversight that should be corrected. And I think we were a little bit, we didn't quite, as we know how the session ended, I think they didn't want any more fights, but I think they would be open. I mean, he on public record said, I will work with the counties to get this changed. So I would like to continue to pursue that route. Maybe we have an IGA in the meantime, but that actually sort of leads to my first concern with this is when does this IGA potentially terminate? I don't, as I read it, this intergovernmental agreement terminates upon the expiration of any SIP approved during its existence. So if a SIP is approved, this will last until the first SIP expires or until the last SIP expires, which means hypothetically this goes on indefinitely.
Well, that's kind of what the point is not to reinvent the wheel with every new person that comes in. This SIP isn't specifically aimed at any one. Like I said, we have two that are kind of out there that might be first coming up. So it's aimed between us and the port. And, you know, if, I don't know, Amazon has met, they've been here. I think they, I don't know how to phrase it. They want to move forward. Okay, so if we don't do something like this, then we still have to and you're banking on the emergency session, which we talked to Todd Nash yesterday at his open house, and he said, don't expect anything in the open session or the quick session.
Oh,
except some very short-term stuff. I mean, they have a set agenda and a lot of people want to stick their stuff in there. He says, we don't anticipate that happening. They have a very short agenda, and he says most people don't want to expand it and start having to turn it into a regular session. So if we do hold off on this and just say, okay, we're going to wait until the special session to see if maybe they might, which they've already not agreed to change it, but they might then you have to go back to whoever wants some answers now and say, well, we have to decide how are we going to do, because the law is very vague. I'm sure you've read it, Gus, because you were working hard on trying to get it changed, you and Matt. It's vague, you know, it doesn't give us any guidelines about what's the process, you know, how do we work through this with our new partnership with the board. Yeah, Mike?
Chair Sykes, can I speak up here?
Absolutely, please.
So to address your concerns, Commissioner Peterson, you know, we can put language in that IGA that says it expires if and when the law changes. And so I believe you are correct. The IGA would hold tight until, like, if we signed an IGA an SIP with a company today, then this would be in effect until the expiration of that SIP exemption. But if the law changed in the short session, which I believe is what you're talking about, not the special session coming up next month, but the short session in January, if the law changed then and then took effect next summer, then any SIPs we negotiate after that wouldn't be privy to this IGA. Does that make sense?
I agree if we write something in there that makes that clear. I think as it currently stands, I think this IGA would stand in place even if the law did change. And that's one of my major concerns with it.
No, and that's a good catch. I think you're correct, and I think it'd be really simple to add that language in there.
Okay. I really appreciate the work you guys have done, and I agree we need to get some kind of framework. I am a little bit puzzled on so under number 1E, negotiations. You know, it seems to me like we haven't really actually clarified a whole lot, and we just end up really back with square one of this is how things exist under the law as it currently is. I would love to see something where perhaps instead, we had something along the lines of the port agrees to automatically approve all SIP agreements in the county with the exception of projects on port property or involving significant port infrastructure involvement. Now, of course, what that would mean, you know, I think that would be something the port would be able to provide us with, but I would love to have that level of clarity of when we're making decisions, who's at the table for making those decisions. And as I see it right now, it's the county makes that decision, but then of course the port can veto it. And that's where we are. And I don't see the point of entering into an IGA that doesn't advance us in any particular direction. So.
Well, I think one thing you have to think about is, if you leave it in that kind of language, I still don't think that has enough specificity to, because one of the things that can happen that I saw in this is if somebody doesn't like something the way it is now, without this, their weapon of choice is to be a spoiler. And that's what we want to avoid is, you know, is make our process, don't hinder development in the county because the port in the county happen to, and you know, and this will transcend or change it. Well, it won't. I mean, it can be repealed, but hopefully it will transcend changes in the board, you know, so that it maybe it depoliticizes it a little bit so that we have a standard way of arriving at decisions is, you know. So I was wanting to avoid any ambiguity on who does what, you know, and you know, you're not trying to cut anybody out, but just clarify the process. Because I mean, if you know, if right now, okay, say the port and the county sit down, we're going to negotiate a deal with X company. Do they get 5 votes and we get 3? You know, how does it all work? You know, I mean, there's no framework now for how are we going to arrive at decisions. Meanwhile, the company's sitting over there going, hey, you know, we got this place over here is ready to go, and they're not making us wait 4 or 5 months while you guys have your inter-county squabble here. So, you know, that was the goal of this IJ. You know, if you think it didn't accomplish that, then it's not what I wanted. You know, I kind of thought it did.
No, I think it's a good starting point, but I would want to see more specificity on those, you know. If it doesn't really involve the port, I would love to have something where the port agrees, yeah, we're not going to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just to have that clarity of if the port is not involved, then they're just gonna approve that and we have that conditional approval and we don't even have to worry about that. And I think that would be great. And it would also provide clarity for the port on, you know, if you have major infrastructure involvement, again, I think that would be a discussion to have with the port on what that specifically might look like. Then that provides them, I think, with the coverage that they want to have, where they don't want to get burned by a project where they are putting in work but not necessarily getting all of the benefits from. So.
Well, I think one thing you to remember too is, you know, development on their property is benefit outside of tax revenue. In fact, that's the main benefit, you know. And and I was told that from, you know, I mean, it's an incentive, but the big benefit to the port is, you know, their utilities, so and so forth. So, if the port isn't directly involved in your wording, then say not on port property.
Okay. Yeah.
And if I may interrupt again, it's the port's purpose to provide, to provide services and utilities, and they also receive revenues, for providing those those services as well. So I just, want everybody to remember that.
What do you think, Jeff?
So maybe to get to Gus's point or concern is, and I've said this before, I thought that where the port should be involved is when it's on port industrial ground, kind of the same things. The Hefner Wind project, like you bring up, Dave, I'm not sure what the port's bringing to the table on that one. So maybe to Gus's point, maybe the wording would be on any industrial or industrially zoned land, because the port isn't going to do anything out on the wind project, because that's going to be on EFU. The data center off of Tor Road, I don't believe that was the port's property. I believe that was somebody else's property. It was just zoned port industrial. So I wouldn't want to cut them out because it wasn't the port's property, but it was port industrial. So maybe to address Gus's concern is based it off of zoning, industrial or port industrially zoned ground. The port is there. If it's on there, if it's not on there, it's not on port industrial or industrial ground. Then basically they're gonna say we're gonna sign off on it. I bet the other thing to address maybe some concerns that somebody else might have is on 1D, the consideration of applications, and the second sentence is SIP policies adopted by the county. And this isn't maybe language to put in here, but just recognition that these would be policies that we come together, that the port and the county develop those policies. So if they're mutually agreed policies and they're checking those boxes of those policies, whether that be employment or, payroll or whatever the policies we come up with, if they're checking those boxes, I don't know why somebody wouldn't sign off on the agreement. So I think that, those policies would be important to have in place, and again, in consultation with the port, get their buy-in on that.
They give me a pencil out here.
And like I say, I don't know how you would put that into the policy, but that's an
Yeah, no,
implicit
and
agreement or
this is what-
acknowledgement.
But I wanna understand what you guys are saying, because I don't want this to drag on where we're back.
No,
back to
I
that.
agree with you, Dave,
So
because
I wanna get to where. I wanna get
one developer that definitely is wanting to move forward on something, and because this will affect wind renewable energy projects, and we know that they're jumping at the bit because of things have changed, that they're going to want to have things in place. So we don't need to drag this out for 6, 8 months. And again, you've made the point, Dave. This is the county's role in economic development, is by creating policies where it's easy to do business in Morrow County.
Okay, let me get this straight, because we wanna send this back to legal and get something hammered out, so we're not dragging on forever and ever. So your concern is, or what you would like to see is change or insert in there that it applies to port industrial zone land.
Or industrial.
Or industrial, okay. Or any industrial land in the county.
Yep. Because that's where the port's gonna have a hand in doing this.
Right, okay. Now, Gus, give me yours again in succinctly, and then so I can get it. We can get it translated or given to an attorney who knows what we're gonna talk about. Or you can email it to
Yeah.
me.
Just to verify, I mean, the industrial lands that are not within a city are specifically Kinzu, which. Yeah, and then we've got the stuff west of the Boardman Airport. Anything else is probably covered by the CREZ area, unless we were to change the zoning.
Well, they don't have to go with CREZ.
I know.
So that's the point, see, is it gives them two options. SIP or CREZ. I mean, just to say, well, if they're in the CREZ zone, they're automatically gonna do CREZ is not a statement that's factual, because.
I'm just thinking of any, like, with this, so specifically with the wind turbines, it seems like most of those are going in
If you, yeah.
So I was just wondering, just to clarify for my mind, where that industrial aspect and most of that is
Well,
pretty
Yeah.
agreeable with
yeah,
Prez or what the port operates or is immediately nearby.
there's industrial land in South County, but the port owns it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, where UEC's switch yard is at the intersection of 730 and I-84, like 19 acres that Larry Chastain owned, that UEC bought, is zoned industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there could be pockets of industrial ground that the port does not own. And again, the bottom data center off of Bottom Range Road, I don't believe the port owned that ground. It was just zoned port industrial. Yeah, I think it was owned by the farmer.
So yeah, so Jeff actually basically addressed mine. I would also like a termination clause if the law does change.
Here, wait a minute. Cause I gotta remember.
Okay.
Write down there what you want.
Okay.
Specifically. Because I don't, like I said, I don't wanna,
No,
I don't wanna
appreciate
shoot it
that.
to an attorney, pay him some more money, bring it back, and you go, well, I didn't exactly what I was thinking. Because just for clarity, I'm not trying to argue.
And so also on the termination, I think that to Kevin's point, you know, I think it needs to be clear in there, this is for SAP agreements going forward, not retroactively. And that the termination, that's his point, if the law changes, but I think that the law doesn't change, then this agreement continues until the life of any SIP program in the state.
Yeah.
That would be my take on it.
Yeah, if the law doesn't change, then yeah.
Because you're right, I think Gus pointed out, it's the way it kind of reads, the termination is that the first SIP agreement expires, then this.
This will
IDA
expire
That's-
with it.
and that's not what-
And I know that's not the intent, but
Okay.
I agree with the plain reading of
Yeah,
it, that that's,
understood, yeah. Yeah, that wasn't the intent at all.
No.
It's
and I knew it wasn't.
Yeah.
but-
Right, exactly.
And again, do thank you and Mike for taking the first stab at it, which is the hardest part. It's always easy to criticize coming back.
Yes. So, I think,
This is good. I'm glad that we did this because now we have some traction. I think we're making traction. We got Evans, we got both you guys
so
and
with that, I would move to table this agenda item to our next meeting to vote on with changes that we have discussed.
I'll second that.
moving second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Motion carried.
And just clarification, Dave, you're gonna get with whoever you work with, get those changes, and they'll be before us the next meeting.
That's the plan now.
Okay.
That's the plan.
I assumed that was, but just
Yeah,
clarification.
I'm gonna push this thing through.
Oh, thank you for doing it.
Push it through, but make it the way you want it. Okay, next step on our business items is HB 2089. Surplus of foreclosed properties process. Maybe that's coming to a fruition here, huh, Matt?
Yes, so the gist of this is to give you an update. As we look at the foreclosed property, we've had a moratorium on that for over 18 months that we couldn't dispose of it. The gist of the issue was properties foreclosed due to tax, non-payment of taxes and such. The county gets it after a certain period of looking at it, and then they sell it. And occasionally, I don't have stats on it, those properties sell more than what's owned on it with the tax liens and stuff. The state came out and said that's not right. Actually, federal laws came back and said that's a taking from the government because we're taking those additional revenues. And those monies need to go back to the owners of the property. The issue is how do you do that? And then what do the counties do? So HB 2089 set up a process, much back and forth between AOC and the state and different entities. The assessors were involved in it quite heartily. And what the compromise came out with HB 2089 was the Oregon State Treasury would be the holder of the funds. And so what they have is they have a lost you know, more or less a lost money or lost property kind of website where you put your name in and if you have some money that's there. So this will now, what's proposed is within 60 days after after a property is sold by the county has to send in any surplus monies that was made into the Oregon State Treasury. And they have to have a report showing what their transaction was. And then the state treasury would hold that money until someone claims that. I did not ask, what if nobody ever claims it? I'm sure they'll find a way for, to hold
find
that
a way to
money or
use
do
it.
something, yes. But that takes the onus off the counties of how do we hold it? Do we have any interest bearing items in that? And it just makes it so we take care of the lost or the monies that are owed to the county. It is important to know that as we look at this and take care of these, any kind of maintenance or any administrative things that we deal with that, we will want to quantify that and add that on to the lien that's required. So if we have to go and cut weeds, we track that, we put that on as additional expenses accrued by the county for the maintenance of the property. So we aren't losing money over that period where we're holding the property. With this, it comes off on September 27th. And so I'm looking to get in touch with Mr. Gorman and the sheriff because they have statutory responsibilities on that to redefine and make sure our process for the disposal of tax foreclosed properties is set and that we can start making some tax options on that, whether it's an annual one every 2 years. The county really hasn't had a set date and process for it in the past. It's just like we'd compile a bunch of properties and once we hit a certain threshold, we'd put them out for sale. And we have different entities that reach out interest in the properties and it's like,
It's one of the most common questions I get.
Yes.
is,
Me too.
Hey, when can you get rid of that?
and it doesn't help that we've had the moratorium for last.
No, and I'm glad that you have the part in here where you're gonna jump right on it and start getting, because I don't see any reason the county should have a bunch of little properties
No.
around. And the public is interested to develop these up or
Yes.
use them.
And, you know, we have some houses, you know, depending on what state they are, but some of them are habitable and recoverable if we can dispose of them and get them off our books. And it's been frustrating that we've had this moratorium on for this time. So I just wanted to, the state and AOC set up a work shop that was on, they had it last week. I attended that. They're going to have a couple others to help us go through this. We do have a questionnaire about who's going to be processing that. And I'll be working with Mike to complete that. The sheriff has a role in holding the auction. Of course, the tax assessor or the assessor has a role in, you know, what those amounts are and everything. And so there's several parties that we need to pull into place, make sure we're set. And what I'd like to do is I would propose is at least an annual set date for it. And then maybe with an optional semi-annual date where we can do it. And if we don't have any properties, we just post, there's no properties. And if
That'd
we
be
don't have
wonderful.
2 or
We have
3,
no tax foreclosed.
yes. And if we have just 2 or 3, we put them
Tell
up
'em,
there
yeah.
and try to get rid of them. So, so we had talked about this. I know Berta, when she was acting as interim, was starting to work on that. We'll take this and get this in place and just let you know that we would hopefully anticipate that we can get the ball rolling on this. Probably won't have a tax auction on September 28th, but hopefully we can get it. And so we can give a report to you by the second meeting in September when what that process is going to be.
Now, I might have missed something in what you just said.
Mhm.
The county does not have a policy right now on how and when to auction or get rid of these, right?
That's what we would need to develop and just finalizing theirs. It's been a little bit, you know, they've been following the process that's set up in the state ORS, but it doesn't have a specific. So we do have that question. When are you gonna do it? Other counties that I'm been familiar with have a set date that by the second week in September, we're gonna have that. And so that's what I want to work with Mike and the sheriff on is to make sure we develop it, it's supportable, and we bring it into.
Is there I'm sorry, is there an advantage to doing them all at once over, is it cost less or is there, I mean, why shouldn't you, if you got a foreclosed property, just put it up for auction right then?
We have to give specific notice in that,
No,
and so,
understood.
you know. And
Rather
I
than
don't know if
waiting.
Mike's still on here, but, we don't have a huge amount of these going through, but, you know, setting it up so there's 2 or 3, so there's interested parties. And it's expected instead of just a pop-up, shop kind of approach to it.
I think for the purposes of clarity, it would be nice to say, hey, this is the date that we're gonna put all of these up. So anybody who's interested, rather than, you know, having to constantly watch if something is foreclosed and then the county, you know, may turn around and sell it, you know, or auction it off quickly, which, you know, may be the case in terms of if there's that one date, but it just provides clarity for public or people who might be interested in purchasing.
So to
Generally-
your point, I'd say, like, I think Matt mentioned it maybe a couple times a year, we
Yeah.
have set dates that foreclosed properties are eligible, will be auctioned on
Yeah.
this date, and if there aren't any, we don't. Totally back to point, if you're watching, where you don't have to watch every single one, you just know if, I think Matt said September 2nd or whatever, you know, whatever. If you know that that's the date, then a month out, you look to see what's available on the county that's gonna be auctioning.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be paying attention and you get bypassed if you want.
It also allows us, because there is quite the process where we have to wait so many years, we have to give notice, we have to do all that. If we take everything over a certain time, give a 3 to 6 month period, then we take all of them, we do the legal aspect, we do the thing, so it's all, you know, here's just, if you go to Justin, the sheriff, say, here's these 5 properties, do it all together, instead of saying, oh, Justin, can you get to this on this single one or whatnot? And it just makes it a little more streamlined to do it that way.
Well, and the reason I asked is, and it might be different, Jeff, you probably know the north end better than the south, but the ones in the south, it's people that have a specific, they want to use that property,
Oh,
they
yeah.
want to develop it, so it's not they're out shopping around. So if you say, oh, well, we just held the auction, it's gonna be another year before you can get your hands on that property or have a shot at it, see,
Mm.
it's, yeah.
So people that's have a couple times, 2 times a year, Dave.
Yeah, 2 times I
Yeah.
think it'd be better.
And like I said, easy thing is, if we work out the process and we don't have anything, we just post, hey, for this auction, we don't have any properties.
No, I just,
So, yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Regarding the surplus, to state treasury. So they want it to be reported and paid to them through the normal unclaimed property report.
Yes.
They're not
Right.
changing it or doing anything different. It's just that same,
Um,
because usually it's, November 1st, the rest of your unclaimed property is due, but this,
it's
there's
within
a
60 days,
timeline,
yes.
but it would probably be the same reporting software that they do for everything else.
I'm assuming it's the same, but I haven't seen the original report. I just saw the report that they had, and so I don't have a base of reference on that. So, but we can chat on that. So, yeah, because since it's money, it'll be for you as well. So we've got a couple different processes, and I see that the sheriff's raising his hand.
yes, Sheriff Bowles.
Yeah, the foreclosure process is something that we've done at the sheriff's office for years. It goes, and there's a lot of information on the Oregon State Sheriff's Association website. If you're talking about policy and stuff like that, and there's ORSs that we have to follow. But it's a process that we've done for many years and we continue to do. So it's nothing new. So if
You're
there's any
talking about-
question,
Sorry.
Go
You're
ahead.
talking about bank foreclosures.
yes,
That's what the sheriff, your office deals with
yes.
versus tax foreclosures, but we
Yeah.
still need your help with it.
Which ones are you talking about?
We're talking about property tax foreclosures.
What's the difference there? Just so I'm clear.
Well,
Who's owed the money?
Much longer process, or I know that, at least Mike can speak for Mike, of the tax foreclosure. He starts the process and there's redemption periods. And so it's a lot longer process. I remember that. And that's the issue here. And definitely banks don't seem to worry about when they get their residents back. If there's excess proceeds, they're not worried about that. We are, but it is, I think and the way we do it, the selling of it's different too. We have a very set process, not not, on the open market the same, besides, I guess it is open market auction, but it's not like we're posting it saying, hey, we want $500,000 for this parcel, that's the market price. It's the auction process is different. Who shows on the courthouse steps. So that it is, they're a little bit different, the process we do it, but. Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
And generally, the bidding starts at what's owed. And you let it go from there. So, because with this lot, that's all the county's really interested in recovering, because we don't get anything extra that's there. But because there might be a period where we do hold it, we might have to send facilities or public works out to maintain. We want to make sure we capture all
practice.
Yes. That's a good point. Yeah, that's the things right now. It's not kept track those costs because we never really got anything back. We get the property maybe in excess, but there's a cost we had to take anyways. So there wasn't really a basis to do a record keeping. Now it would be more if we're trying to say, hey, sold for this, we need all the costs we have on there. And listing on policy, referencing, we are going to charge attorney fees with this much money for staff time, just like we do for public records requests or those are things for things where we have a set cost assigned to it. So.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we'll be in touch with the sheriff, and Jaylene and Kevin will be impacted by that because money's in, money's out, all those kind of things. So we'll be pulling those in, bringing that policy. So the state's finally given us an answer direction, so we will be working that. That'll be a priority for us over the next month or so.
Okay.
So on foreclosed property, gas station in Iowa.
Oh, so that's one good thing. I mean, that has received their second
Do we have a clean bill of health
DEQ,
on it?
and I have not received that, but that is something that I know we have several parties in and out around Ione that are interested in that. So I will reach out to the DEQ and see what the final status is. They did do that cleaning this spring and summer, so I just haven't received the clean bill of health there. And so I can look into that.
Yeah, I have a question on that. Is it required for us to get a clean bill of health, or can you just disclose it in the sale? Because I had one person, that's one of the ones, and Gus has probably heard this too. And that's one of the ones that I've gotten more people ask me about. And I had two of them say, I don't care, I'll take it, whatever. Do we have to have a clean bill of health before we, can we just say, do like you do in real estate, just disclose, you got a buried fuel tank there.
So we're at the point that I think we probably could do that. I wasn't involved with the original determination on why DEQ was getting involved in that. I'd have to go back and look at it. I don't know if you.
I don't remember. I know it got brought up. I just don't remember
It was before we took.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
There was
I don't remember.
a peer program where they'd go in there and remediate because it was an old gas station.
I remember in the meeting when that was initiated to get that done. And I remember the bids that came back to do it, and I've done it myself on real estate. And they can be very expensive. And you don't know what you're gonna pay until you get in there, because it depends on what you find once you get. And they drill holes down, it's very expensive. Or like I said, I had one guy tell me, I'll bid on that station the way it is, and I'll take care of it.
So the nice thing is the fuel tanks are out. Any impact from the pneumatic system inside, that's the latest remediation. It's to the point where we could actually put it out and then we wouldn't have to worry about that. So we might get additional monies for that. And I'm not even sure how much is owed on that. I'd have to look into that, but I could look into that and give a little report and update to the BOC at the next meeting.
Yeah, it might be, does the BOC want to sell properties with the disclosure that there's a buried tank there? Do they have some kind of obligation?
So what I would want to hear is from legal, is that them come back and bite us from the liability standpoint, even though we disclose it,
So I've dealt with those kind of transactions in another state. And as long as you have the disclosures and everything set up, I mean, those are additional items. You can sell impacted properties. You take a beating on the price, but when we have a tax foreclosed property, it's not like we have a lot of money on it,
Yeah, but
probably.
if you have to mitigate that.
It's
and
very
get a-
expensive.
You might take you're beating on your price maybe less than you're beating from the
And-
mitigation company, because they charge.
Yeah,
a
and
lot.
the nice thing about the Ion gas station is we're not paying for it. Unfortunately, we've gotten the state funds. And so that's been my hesitation in saying, let it be available, because it's not gonna be our community, or if someone buys it and tries to do something without mitigating that, it just makes sure we have a clean property.
Yeah, or else, if you have the money available, it might be a good thing for the community to clean it up, because the person that buys it wouldn't have that,
Mhm.
so.
So I will have an update by the next
Okay.
meeting.
All right, thank you. Anything else on that? Okay. Next up is 6E, sanctuary state impact on federal grant county revenue, Matt and Kevin.
Yeah. I wrote this up, but this is a rather significant concern for the financial standing of the county. As you may have heard, that with the sanctuary state status that Oregon and other states, about 9 other states have, that with the federal government has made it so if the state doesn't agree to implement enforcement of immigration rules, that they have started restricting funds to those states that are provided through grants. And so we've already seen some impacts on on grant revenues that are cycled through the state. By and large, the grants that we have directly with the federal government as the county, we haven't heard of any impacts there. But we have several different departments that are heavily dependent upon those grants for operations of either a specific program or their entire project that are in question. Kevin pulled me to the side on this, and we've seen some initial ones. We've received some correspondence from different groups on the state level about the risk that we have on it. And I'll just summarize Kevin and I's discussion. We currently have over $2.4 million in federally grant funded programs. About $1 million of that is for the CD, the congressional directed spending on the nitrate water issue. And so that's pretty much safe because it's directly with us. So we have about $1.5 million of federally funded programs that are cycled through the state. We've already seen some impacts on those. We've received notice that our grant for marine patrol coverage has been reduced by 30%. We have received a direction that the VOCA, the victim advocates, and the child support enforcement might be reduced up to 80% of what we receive for that grant. We currently receive about $87,000 on that. So that would be a hit that covers salaries and operations for those vital support groups. We've received a notice on emergency management with the EMPG grant that might be a question. Now, interesting enough, they say, go ahead and apply for it, but they might come back retroactively and ask for that money back, pull that money back. And so it's just creates a very big concern about how we operate with these things. The Marine Patrol, the sheriff had mentioned he was doing 4 days of Marine Patrol coverage. He's reduced that down to 3 to cover this. But we still have a full-time employee there that now is coming from other funds on those kind of things. And the sheriff's trying to work with that within his budget. However, that creates an issue. We have a lack of revenues that were approved by the BOC to operate a budget that's now not there. And so we have to get direction, since you are the deciding party and the governing body, on how to do those budget decisions. As we look at that, we need some direction. We have not heard of any major impacts for public health, which is our biggest department that's relying on federal grants. They receive about $500,000 from that. Our transit receives $330,000 approximately. We've heard rumblings on that, but nothing definitive yet. And so those are 5 groups that are particularly vulnerable to the current federal situation and grant reduction because of sanctuary state. I reached out to AOC and they said, there's not much we can do. We work within the state. This is really a governor and state attorneys general discussion. And they are looking to have more discussion on that. They had tried during this previous legislative session to make sure the state would guarantee shoring up any shortfall in funds for that. That didn't go very far, especially with the current budget situation. With this, Kevin and I spoke, and if you're okay, I'm laying out the options of what you're looking to do, because this really impacts as he has to look to approve and verify available funds to pay for different operations. So Kevin, would you mind reviewing what the options are? I tried to capture what we discussed.
Yeah, really, there's the decision to be made is, if we lose funding and for any of these programs, are we going to, would be the intention of the board to direct, whether it's from reserves or contingencies? Obviously that's a short-term solution, or the other options would be to reduce or eliminate programs or activities and eliminate the costs that were previously supported. And I kind of covered 2 of them there in my first comment. So really, and then, is there a something that the board, would you want to handle this on a case-by-case basis? Is there a threshold? We already know that, for example, the Oregon State Marine Board grant for the sheriff's office was reduced from prior years by about 30%. I met with the sheriff. I don't know if he's still on, but I met with the sheriff earlier this week, and it sounds like Matt talked with him too. It's about around $11,000. It's something that he's able to manage within his budget. So there's probably no formal action that needs to take place there. But again, as the ultimate authority on the county expenditure of funds and appropriations, kind of wanted to put this in front of you guys for guidance and direction.
My question is, and I thought of it too, when we had a shortfall in the budget this year. Sometimes we talk about reserves or contingencies, but is there a way to say, because when you take money from here, like we took 1.5 million, and I know I saw the fix on that might be to reduce the contingencies. Tell me if I'm wrong now, for next year over each department. Is that correct?
Trim the fat.
Huh?
Trim the fat.
Trimming the fat, yeah. Reduce the and that fat's coming from the contingency.
It's from contingency that departments have built into their departmental budget.
Right, no, understood. But my point being, when we say things, the money has to come from somewhere. So the option where it says, okay, cut that service, that's very straightforward. I'm not arguing one way or the other, but we understand that. But when you say take it from contingency or take it, I'd like to see us say, okay, this program, capital improvement is not going to have that fund because you're shifting it up. That's what I would like to see, rather than the generic term contingency. Okay, we're going to support the money that we lose because we're a sanctuary state, and we're going to take that money to support those activities out of our capital improvement plan. So we know exactly, you take it, you rob Peter to pay Paul, or however you want to say it. It's going to have to be cut from somewhere else. So that's what I would like to have, said.
Yeah, and I think when I said contingencies, I meant contingencies and reserves, which obviously includes project reserves for capital projects and stuff. So apologize, I kind of lumped that all together there, but contingencies or reserves. But again, those are typically non-recurring type sources of funding. And so that's more of a short-term solution. And I don't know that there's a, you know, a solution. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of this. We haven't heard anything officially, like Matt had said, from OHA or ODOT, which are the two largest federally funded programs that we have. But the rules are the same for any funding that's coming from the state. And, you know, like I said, like Matt said, we've heard from a couple of different state agencies. And so I think it's reasonable to assume that any of that funding would be at risk. And it's hard to tell how much is, you know, political posturing versus how much is, you know, real. But, you know, in my seat, I'm going to assume that there's at least some level of risk that we don't have those dollars coming in.
And, you know, that's the information, like you say, it's up to us to make that decision. And to me, if I'm gonna make that decision, I wanna know exactly what other area of the county is going to have to pay for this. Not that I would say no, I mean, I would just, I think that's part of the information package we should get when we make our decision. Yeah, that makes sense.
So on a case by case
Well,
basis, if something, I just want to make sure I'm understanding kind of what you're saying. You know, let's say that we got a notice hypothetically from ODOT that says, hey, you're gonna lose this $300,000, then, you know, I would, you know, meet with Stephen and Vince and Matt, put together a, you know, here's what it would look like to cut it, and here's what it would look like to fund it from other sources.
well,
Handle this on a case by case basis.
should we know what department that's going to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's my point, you know, I mean, okay, we're gonna make these guys whole, but these guys over here aren't gonna be whole anymore, you know, or not maybe these guys, but like I said, capital improvement, is capital improvement gonna take a hit to keep these guys whole? And I'm not value judging one way or the other, I'm just saying, I like that information if I'm gonna make a decision.
I can tell you that right now, any recommendation, if funding was cut to any particular program and it was the board's desire to continue that, at least for the time being, that service to that program, my default recommendation would be from capital project reserves. We have substantial reserves over and above what we have allocated to the courthouse, which is the only major capital project that's in progress right now. So I think there's, you know, probably in excess of another $5 or $6 million there. Then that's where my default recommendation would be to take that from at this point.
But if we're starting a capital improvement plan process, so that, if we do that over time, it's going to impact what that plan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So-
Just lay it out there. the way I see it.
A question for you. I mean, that's definitely, I mean, that's the available reserves to make sure that we can do it. Is there a threshold that you'd like us to try to make do with current budgets? Case in point, the sheriff saying $11,000. Yes, we've got lost revenue, but I can work it in my current budget. I mean, is there a tipping point? I mean, we can always report those to you.
You know, see, we don't know that tipping point until we know, if we have a capital improvement plan and we have X number of dollars committed to X projects. Then we know where the tipping point is, because we'll say, okay, we're not gonna do this project because we have to take that money and move it over into operation. See, so when you say, well, there's a tipping point, we'd just be picking a figure out of midair because we don't know what other program it's damaging or removing it from.
So Dave, I think I understand what Matt was saying though. In this instance, the sheriff's office example, we wouldn't be needing to move money from another fund outside the sheriff's department. The sheriff would be managing his own already budget to pay for this. He isn't gonna be requiring to rob Peter to pay Paul. He's just gonna be,
He's gonna rob Peter to pay Peter.
yeah, I mean, it's all within in his
Understood.
budget.
I just,
So that's the difference
I just
on
like-
that example.
So it's not so much, maybe it's not so much a monetary amount, maybe it's a percentage of the program. Where if, I mean, the Marine Board thing, percentage of the sheriff's overall budget is fairly small. I mean, $10,000 lost on, you know, a couple $1 million budget. VOCA, a $60,000 loss could just throw that totally into a spiral.
Yeah.
So,
What I would say is that I would like to see the departments work with the contingencies that they have, and then as soon as that no longer works, then say, all right, let's look at what it would take to fill that gap. Because, you know, the smaller ones, that's what we've got, part of why we have contingencies for, but $60,000 from VOCA, yeah, that's something where we then would have to decide to step in.
So maybe I'll be the minority here, but I guess with grants, I've always, you know, felt that when the grant goes away, the position goes away. Been very clear, you know, the big example of that is the loop, the special transportation. Because it was always community or grant funded. And, you know, fortunately, the county's in a position where we have some reserves. 20 years ago, the county didn't have the reserves, so there would be no question, no fun, no activity. And, you know, if you start robbing Peter to pay Paul, pretty soon you're back to the county doesn't have any money again. So, no grant,
And I think
the
that
program goes
discussion,
away.
I think that discussion has been held many times. And people in our position, when you apply for a grant, you say this grant might go away, so don't become dependent on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard it. But
So
anyway,
that's my point on it, but
I know.
there's 2 other people here to make that vote,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, no, I hear you.
Where's the, oh, if it's okay, more of this hat DA office with the VOCA, we talk about the grant, just let me bring it up, and it hopefully won't come up to an issue, we won't have to bring it back. But for the grants, I've been at every meeting where you talk about, you know, if it's a grant. What I'll note, it's kind of unique on some grants, the VOCA, it's also required by Constitution to do certain things for victims, but that grant, I remember, at least when I started, I get paid half of the salary, maybe at most or less, and it was always backfilled. And then we started getting like more money, like all of a sudden the feds were like saying, hey, we got more money, you should take more. And during a budget cycle, it was finance, I think it might have been before Kevin. And the idea came up like, well, gosh, you don't need to backfill at all. We're just going to use all grant funding for this. I'm like, I'm not comfortable with it, but I guess that's, you're right. If we don't have any need for backfill, that's fine. And now I worry that, gosh, we got too much money, and that could be an issue too to consider. Well, we were being half paid by general fund. We got so much more money, and we were told, hey, just use it all towards salary and benefits. Okay, we'll do that. That might negatively affect us. I know at one point I was, some of our offices might be concerned about, can we, even during a budget cycle, change this over to a general fund? Because I just know, like, oh, grants take a lot of time and resources to do grant reporting, all the work with finance, keeping track of stuff. Maybe can we pitch this as a general fund position instead? You know, turn down grant funding because it takes a lot of time and resources. And I think the feedback was like, no, if we're getting money from the state, they're willing to give you money, we take the money. We don't turn it down, you know? Said, okay, well, we'll keep applying for the grant. So I just, you know, it might just be my particular office, this one job, but maybe other departments are being encouraged to do the grants by saying, hey, if we can get this employee paid for by somebody else, let's do it. You know, we didn't go forward on options by saying, let's get this to a general fund, more stability funding, those concerns. So that's the only thing I bring up. Hopefully I won't have to come back here, but I do know for ours that, at least for the VOCA, this is now a nationwide, but there's a press release, I think, by Attorney General Rayfield, Washington, Multnomah County DAs, talking about the 80% reduction, how it really affects their office. And I'm like, well, guys, it affects your office, but when you only have one person in a small county that's always paid for, yeah, sure, you're saying you're down maybe half your people, but you still have 50 workers to do it. You know, that's a little bit different.
I still have the program.
Yeah, at least you still have a
Many
program.
people working it.
Yeah. So,
Well, in each of these affected departments, is it an all or nothing deal? Or I mean, you know, is there some negotiation in there like, okay, well, we trim over here, we talked about that a little earlier. Hey, you know, see if you can work your budget around a little bit. And then if the BOC does decide to kick in some, try to get it rather than an all or nothing, you know, decision.
Well, I think that a standard, I mean, that's gonna be, if I find out that the public transit's gonna lose, $300,000, and this is all hypothetical, right? But it's potential. If they were gonna lose that, I mean, the first thing that we would do is what can we do to manage within what we've got, and can it be managed on an ongoing basis? And so that's would just be normal kind of diligence that we would do before we brought anything to the board, but also using that as an example, that would be a disastrous loss of funding for that program.
No,
And
understood.
I think this is, I've talked a lot about, and I'll echo a little bit of what Commissioner Wenholz was just saying. I've talked a lot about maintaining a structurally sound and balanced budget. And anytime that you rely on potential funding that can go away from just a purely conservative fiscal perspective, you have to be willing to make those expenditures go away too. Because just looking at this overall, the general fund, our property tax dollars could not support, this $1.5 million at this point.
If I could propose, Chair. What we'll just need to do is I will send out a request to all elected officials and department heads that if they hear of any shortages of grants, that they notify myself and Kevin. We'll meet with them and see if we can work within their current budgets. We'll report back to you about the impact. But if there's anything where we can't work within the current budget, then we come to you for determination based on a case by case.
Well, that works unless they have the opinion that the piggy bank's gonna be open, no matter what, if they just say, no, I can't adjust.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna go to the piggy bank and make them whole.
Well, that's why.
Well,
Kevin
then
and I have that.
that's when we'll have a discussion. And
But
Yeah,
that
I
doesn't
keep
put
the-
any
I keep the piggy bank pretty
emphasis on
tight.
Trying to find this thing. You want a little pressure to, hey, try to make this work.
And like I said, we don't need there's not a solution, I don't think, to be found right here. This is just as an awareness and wanting to get the board's general perspective on
Okay.
how you'd like us to proceed, and it's of enough impact that certainly I want it to be on your radars. If there's in my mind, when I see something like this, I think, all right, well, we're gonna have to block off some of our contingencies and reserves, and maybe be a little bit more conservative if something comes up, and that's a nice to have versus a have to have sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just part of the big picture. Like I said, there's not necessarily an action right now, I don't think.
Okay. You,
Trying to be proactive.
no, I understand. That's good. I like proactive. You're not sideways, whatever, blindsided. So do you feel like you have direction from us?
Yeah, I think
At
that
this
we would
point?
proceed just kind of how Matt described it. If that's agreeable with the commission, then
Yeah.
Okay.
And anything that's looking definitive, even if it hasn't happened, we'll flag it in the administrator's update, just to let you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess one other thing I would ask is, so the way that these communications come in, they don't come to me, they come to whoever, maybe a department. I imagine some, if we get any more notices, there's potential that even go to commissioners. So just keep an eye out if you hear anything, or if you're at a meeting or conference, or talking with the state AOC, just let me know so we can kind of keep tabs on it.
Okay, thank you.
Sheriff raised his hand.
Oh, Sheriff Bowles.
Yeah, we're keeping a close eye on this through the Sheriff's Association. And I do get emails about this occasionally, and I will make sure I share those with Kevin and Matt as well. And Commissioner, I will send you that as well, so you just know kind of what's going on.
I appreciate that.
Similar, just a case in point, Boca. I mean, it went through Julian and Justin. That's how we found out about it. They forwarded it to us immediately. So if we can have that kind of communication and just priority with the elected official and department heads, that'll allow Kevin and I to respond and prepare recommendations to you.
Before we get off this, just one question. Kevin, do you know, and I don't know, I probably read it somewhere, what's the total state impact on this?
I read, I don't normally quote newspaper, no offense.
It's good there.
But the last article I saw, it was 15 billion to the state. So pretty substantial. And keep in mind, we're only talking about funds that go to the state from the federal government and then are passed through to local governments. I have not heard anything about direct federal grants. We have a couple of those, the FAA one that Eric just spoke about earlier, and the EPA grants for the congressionally directed spending for the water issues. I haven't heard any issues about those types of grants, and I suspect as long as, you know, Morrow County doesn't become a sanctuary county, that's probably going to continue to be the case. But yeah,
Maybe
so
the governor will blink and we won't have to worry about this, but we're not gonna count on that.
I would not count on that.
Okay. Take that off the table. Does it take a legislative action to change from do they have to wait till,
It was,
or is it a governor's?
Oregon was the first state to legislative pass this.
It's legislation.
Yes.
I mean, so you'd have to do it in the special session if they did it.
Supposedly there will be, with this special session, priority is transportation funding, and there might be some discussion about this very issue.
15 billion is pretty painful,
Huge.
very painful.
And whether someone
But we're
blinks
not-
or they.
We're not in the
might
Take the
opt-
pain, right?
So
Okay.
Sheriff Bowles has his hand up again. I'm not sure if he raised it.
Sheriff
again.
Bowles?
We're good. We're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is correspondence. We got any correspondence?
Nope.
Okay. Commissioner reports. We'll start with Jeff.
Nothing really, you know, last week it was, I had a pre meeting, but nothing really substantial to report on there. Business as usual.
So I went to Todd Nash's house, town hall yesterday, and we took a little tour out to West Glen. Look around after the town hall, which was pretty good. Of course, he points out over and over, he's a minority member of natural resources. He's not on Ways and Means. But it's good to get insight from him, I think. He gets a chance to talk to him. We had a clean water consortium. I thought that was a really productive meeting yesterday, last night. Thank you for putting on all the heavy lifting on that. And Nick Ducati came great. He's a good fighter. And then Thursday, tomorrow, we have our CREZ 3 meeting. So that's a 10 o'clock. To handle the CDC funds, PX 186. Should have got that sent out last time's 202, what the distribution was. And, anyway, I guess that's all I got. What do you got?
I also met with Senator Nash. I had a meeting in the morning, so I chased him down to Arlington when he had a meeting there. And I just, for the public record, for the short session, there are only, every senator can only carry 2 bills. But he is open to ideas, and we talked a lot about housing, and particularly housing in rural areas, and what are things that could potentially be done for that. So he suggested, along with Judge from Gillum County, that we work with EOCA on coming up with a bill to present on some rural housing ideas. So I think we're gonna work with that, and hopefully we can get one of those bills.
Great. Okay. Anything okay?
So I guess my understanding on the special session in January, one of the things is those Ways and Means Committee members can submit more.
That may be the case. I'm
Somewhere I read-
I was told is that he
Yes,
had
no.
2, so I believe.
No, I believe that every regular legislator has 2. But somewhere I swear I read that Ways and Means.
They get special privileges.
They get special privileges.
Purse strings.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Okay. Anything else before we go? Okay, I'm gonna call a 5-minute recess and then we're gonna come back and into open meeting and then go into executive session. Right now, it's a 5-minute recess. Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting of the commission back to order. And at this point, we will be going into executive session. And under ORS 192-6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry out labor negotiations. We also be in the session for ORS 192-6602H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. There will be, when we come back to open session, a potential decision or action items as a result of the executive session. So at this point, I will call this into executive session. Oh. Any media? we
There
don't have-
was, let's see.
We don't have to let them in.
No, we do have Mark hearing via, the county's.
Oh, so we do have.
Yep, that is true. Yeah, on this one, since we do have one appearing via on people Zoom.
It looks like, we used to, but we don't have them now. We have, Mark Renecki, online for that. We do not have any press in the waiting room or in.
Okay, we're now out of executive session into regular session. There will be no action. And with that, any other business to become before the commission? If not, we'll adjourn. Oh, just for you, is anybody left? We do have a land use hearing at 1:30, a work session after that. Everybody